We've looked at vectors in After Effects in a number of different contexts. We've explored how we can use vectors to create layer masks. We've also looked at how we can create shape layers with vectors in After Effects. Another really useful application for vectors in After Effects is within motion paths. So that is a path that we can use to move objects along. I've got a bit of artwork here that I've got from Bezier, and I'll give you the link and credit to that alongside this video. I'm going to set up a bit of artwork in Illustrator that I can use to show my motion paths in action. So I'm copying over a bit of artwork into a 1200 by 1200 pixel canvas or file, and I'm going to save that. Okay, I have my artwork prepared, and I'm going to head over to After Effects and import that as a piece of footage. Super good. Now I'll make a new composition, and 1200 by 1200 will be perfect. Quite short. Give it a name. And I'm going to change the background color in the composition settings. Some kind of sky color, and drop in our balloon into our composition. Might need to make that a little bit possibly darker so that we can see our basket there. Super good. Now let's animate this object. First thing, I'll make it a little bit smaller so it sort of fits in our space a little bit better. And then we'll animate it from one side of the canvas to the other using position property. So at 0, we're going to be at this point, and then maybe at about 2 seconds, I'm going to move my balloon across the stage, holding shift down, and you can see that I've got this motion path here, and this is essentially a vector in space. Vectors, as you know, are coordinates in space that are joined together, and we can see here our 2 points in space, and X and Y coordinates are here and here, and when I scrub the timeline, our object moves between those 2 points along our motion path. You can see here that these little dots are kind of an indication of the amount of frames that there are between those 2 points in space. So around about, we're going at 25 frames per second for 2 seconds, so it should be about 50 frames in there. So you can see that it does look like a path that we draw in Illustrator, and we've got our X and Y coordinates here. We've got our vector in the middle. We've also even got these kind of control handles for changing the curve of that path in space. So now when I drag my timeline indicator across the timeline, you can see that my object's moving across that curve. It's connected by the anchor point, and we can just quickly look at change the anchor point like so, and you'll see that now our object it's kind of connected via that anchor point. I might just undo that and go back to the position property, P on the keyboard. So you can see that that will make it nice and easy for us to manipulate those curves to get you know, very particular movements or animations. You can see now I've created an arc. And if we remember how we kind of modify our vectors from our work in Illustrator, we'll be able to create lots of different kind of movement types based on the modification of those vectors or the motion path. And you can see now we've got kind of an S shape, which is cool. Another thing that we can do is we can add and subtract points to our path using the Bezier tool. So if I add the Add Vertex tool, I can add a point in the center there, and then with the Move tool I can manipulate that independently. And if I get the Convert tool, I can pull out the handles from that middle point that I've made and manipulate those 3 points independently of each other. So that's kind of good. And you can imagine that you can make your path really quite complex by adding lots of different points and manipulating the Bezier handles. Let's just have a quick look at the graph editor there. You can see that currently don't have any easing on those points. We can easily add some easing by right-clicking on those points, going down to the keyframe assistance and adding some easy ease. When I do that, you can see that the space between some of those frames changes. The space closer to the points here is closer together, meaning that it'll move faster at those points and then slower through the middle there. Anyway, that's a quick wrap up of adding or manipulating your motion paths as if they were vectors